Hi guys, it's just a clip on the update on the Xmax 300, the one I've done the paint job on. But rather than just throw you a few boring clips there to start with, let's jump on this bike, go for a ride, and I'll do a voiceover of what we're up to, what's happening, and it may be of a little bit more interest to you as we go along, and you can have a look at a bit of the scenery, and I'll switch over to the other mic and we can go from there. Thanks for tuning into the channel today. Okay, we're going to look at the Xmax 2023 paint job, but before we get into that stage, I just thought to mention on that last clip I had on the bridle track, where I took Classic 350 along it, the volume in the first part of it, the first few minutes, was a little bit on the low side, and that was because I was using the new Zoom mic for the voiceover and didn't turn the gain up. I'll repeat that. I said I didn't turn the gain up. So now things are better, and hopefully you can hear this one pretty good. And even I got back there and had a bit of a watch of it, and even I had to bloody turn the volume up to 100. And I tell you what, when you got to turn your own volume up, it's pretty bad. So apart from that, we're having a look at this Xmax 300 2023 paint job. Here's a photo now of its original condition when I picked it up, and you know, most people would look at that and say, well, what's wrong with that, Warren? What are you idiot getting out there painting a new bike? Or you're bored? Well, I suppose one, I could be an idiot, possibly, and two, I'm bored, but the real reason I painted it is this. This Xmax 300 is a pretty good scooter all round. It's really hard to beat, and I've been on the Forzas and the Adventure 150, a couple of little Suzukis, and some of the other crap, but 6 or 8 of them I tried. Oh yeah, PCX 160, and I actually thought after doing all the tests between them, the Xmax was the best, and that's why this is the third one I've had in the last 3 years. But when the quick story behind this one is, after I bought the previous model, the Icon Grey, which wasn't a bad looking bike, it had the blue wheels and everything, 6 weeks later this bike was released. Now you say, well, what appealed to you on this one? Well, the appeal was the GPS, which I haven't got working yet, so... But then again, I've lived around this same area for 70 years, and why I was obsessed with the friggin' GPS on a motorcycle, stuffed if I know, where I know all the roads around here, and even if I get it working, I'm still not going to use it because I just know where I'm going, because you can't ride around here for 70 years and say I'm going to get lost, unless you get Alzheimer's on the way or something like that, and you say, where am I? And then with a bit of luck, a truck will come along and wipe you out, and you won't have to worry about that side of it either. But apart from that, this is what's going on. Like the digital speedo come in handy. I like that idea because I found that on the Xmax 300 it was a little bit hard to read, and with this digital one on this one I don't have any drama there. So the idea was go for the digital speedo, but I really like that GPS idea. You know, when you get out there and saying, oh, what's that bike? That's my new scooter and it's fitted with GPS. Yeah, man. Really hit the big time this time, Warren. But anyway, apart from that, like I said, never got that working, so I don't have to worry about that. Now the main reason, we'll get back to why I sprayed this bike. This is the new release 2023 model, like I said, with digital GPS, and as a rule, bikes manufacturers only run them, say, they bring out a new model and they make very minor changes over a period of 5 years, because it's pretty expensive in tool and everything else to remodel everything just so some idiot can come along and buy a bike. Now, if you look at it this way, I know that this will be in this shape it must be 3 to 5 years, because they're out to sell as much as they can, make as much money, recover all their outlay and stuff like that. So I figured there's not much I can buy apart from this Yamaha if I want anything for the next few years. So to deter the idea of me trying to get rid of it or sell it, I'll paint it. And I know when you paint something, usually as a rule, prices go down and they devalue them a bit. One guy said to me on the comments, oh, you lose $1,000 on that bike if you paint it and so on. I was laughing at him. Well, I wasn't laughing at him, but I was laughing at $1,000. That's bloody play money. You lose a lot more than $1,000 if you're serious. So I was sort of thinking $1,000. He knows nothing, that bloke. So the only thing that splits him and I is 65 new bikes, I'd say. But anyway, and I know exactly how much you can lose on bikes, cars or anything else, because I've I've had some really good drops, but only one on the bike, and that was on the Classic 350 going back a couple of days ago, where another one bit the dust. Yeah, so apart from that, when we get onto this one here, that was the reason I painted. I thought I'd paint the bloody thing, nobody will come along and want to buy it. I won't be lured to go in there and a new bike comes out. And speaking of new bikes, I've got the Suzuki, what is that bloody thing? Suzuki V-Strom SX arriving in, I don't know, 2 weeks. And I tell you what, I've been thinking it over, and I don't know, I reckon I'm going to buy that Hunter 350 in the Royal Enfield. I think I'll just have to buy one because I'd reckon within the next few months I'll buy one of those for sure. At the moment I'm pushing me Classic 350 to get up to 10,000 so I can hit that score to say furthest out of all the new bikes I've ever had. This is the furthest I've ridden one, and that's, I've got to get to 10,000 to do that. But after that happens, I would reckon I will go for a Classic I'll go for the bloody 350 Hunter 350, whatever way you want to call it. I'd be just curious to see how it goes. Am I going to get rid of the Classic 350 Reborn? No, I don't care, it can sit there and I'll just get another ride and ride it. So that's the plan there, and usually what I say, if I say I'm going to do something, I usually do it. So there's a very good chance, like if you said what are my chances of buying a Hunter 350 out of 100, I'd say, I don't know, 95. So that's pretty good. Money's no issue there buying, it's just that I've got to get 10,000 kilometres on this Classic 350 to beat all records, because I did once do 9,700 kilometres on a Classic 500, and this is a better bike than the Classic 500, as much as I hate to say that, but it is a better bike. So I've got to beat all records on that, and I like sort of flying at records. That's why I know when I say know how many bikes I've had, roughly how many cars I've had and things like that, because I like numbers. Anyway, back to this. We've got onto this one, I looked at this bike and it probably looked all right, and you look at it now and say to yourself, yeah, well, what's wrong with that bloody thing? Why didn't you keep it as it was? But you've got a rough idea now. Now, because of the low looks I get on my clips, and they've only been averaging, I don't know, 600 clips, 600, maybe pushing close to 600 clips, and I get about 600 views, which is pretty bad. And I thought to myself, bugger, I'm not going to do a video of putting this all together and pulling it down. And speaking about putting it all back together, I did have a couple of little pieces left over too, and I don't know whether they give me extra when I bought the bike or whether I failed to put in a couple of screws. But either way, doesn't matter much. So I got into it now, and you'll see where I stripped it down left and right. Now prior to that, I did try to paint the new colour on the bike itself. Now that was a fairly stupid idea, because when I tried to paint it on the bike, I got slight bits of overspray on the other panels, and it was very hard to get a clean line. Now I must admit though, I wouldn't rate my paint job really good on this, 6 out of 10 probably. It might be 7, but yeah, it's all right. But I could have done better if I had a spray gun. So the fact is, after I'd already sprayed it one side once, then I thought, oh no, I can't put up with this shit. This will make me want to sell the bike. So I had to rip all the panels off what I'd had, and then I had to strip it right down to these bones of transformer photos here, like you got there now, and go from there. But in between here, I'll throw a couple of shots up where I had it sprayed, and you know, when you get down there, sometimes you get the inspectors come in and have a look at your work, and they'll say, oh, you missed a bit here or missed a bit there, and I don't know. And then I couldn't use a gun because, you know, the old story, if you've read my comments, the last time I sprayed a car, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I got the shits with the painting after that, and took the compressor and spray gun and air hose out the front and said, I've had enough. So that's what happened out there. It went out there, lasted 5 or 10 minutes, went out there and was gone. But, you know, the fool in his compressor soon parted, and if I would have had that compressor here now, I would have got out there and give this a bit of a workout, and the job would have been a lot better. But then again, I was handicapped by what's all these excuses, Warro? Well, I was also handicapped by low weather. Now I can't control weather because I've painted enough cars, and now only an idiot would paint this time of year when you've got to have 20 plus degrees to get a good gloss on it. But overall, you know, that's the way it goes, and I was a bit bored and had nothing to do, and I thought I'd go out there and hit that bloody Xmax 300 with a rattle can, or several rattle cans, and I actually thought my cost to do this would be $150, but as usual, wrong. 350 AU dollars to do it. So here's some photos of it here in the primer or plastic primer stage. I've got all the panels there on the ground. Then we'll go up further and you'll see now where I've started to put a bit of colour on some of the panels there to see how it goes. Anyway, we'll get into how I prepared the panels. So that'd be something somebody might find interesting. So like I said, I've got the photos there, those 3 shots there where you see all the panels from grey primer up until I applied the top coat. So what I did after I removed them from the bike, I decided I'd use 400 wet and dry sandpaper. So on these prime ones you can see there now, they're the ones there, went right through them, sprayed a lot of them, cleaned them up. So what I did, I rubbed them back with 400 wet and dry, and then I used a clean cloth and I used grease and wax remover to wipe over all the panels to get rid of any residue, anything like that on it. So once that was out of the way, and taking into account, like I said in the earlier thread, that I only had roughly 15, 16, 17 degrees, something like that to work with, where the ideal temp on these would have been up around that 25 mark, especially when you get up to a clear coat. So, well, that's what I found. Now that paint, because it was a bit cool, when I decided to put the base coat on it, I actually put the aerosol cans in warm water in the sink there, and I let them soak there for probably 5 or 10 minutes till the can warmed up, and then I give it a good couple of minutes rattle to make sure it was working all right, and went from there. So what I did after that would, I think I'd give them about 3 coats, you know, like a light coat first and then a heavier coat and a heavier coat after that, working on something like about 10 or 15 minutes in between the coats. And I lined them up and brought one piece over onto a table there and just elevated them up off on things so I could spray right around them and stuff like that. So that's what I did, and I went through all that side of it. And then after that, I got to that stage, and you know, because I warmed up the paint sort in the can, it went on fairly smooth, although I did have a couple of splatters there at one stage and then had to wait for it to dry and then rub it out and do it again, and that worked all right. Now when I got onto the clear coat, I put on, straight after all this was done, probably within 2 hours after they were painting of the base coat, because I thought that would be a good idea, put the clear over it then. I think I give it roughly about 3 coats of clear, a lighter one or a tacky type one first, and then a couple of heavier applications. It might have even been 4 coats, something to that effect. And with clear coat, it's a bit risky at times, because if it's a bit cool, sometimes you'll get runs in it or that effect. And also the worst part about it would be it's got the habit, if the temperature's low, to go milky. So what I was doing with the clear coat was, when I got to coats 2 and 3, which I put on, or the third one especially, a bit thicker, I was only doing virtually one panel at a time, not multiples. And then as I did that panel, I took it out of the brander and put it out and held it out into the sun for, say, a minute, so that it would go off a bit quicker there and it'd be in direct sunlight when it was drying. So at the moment, when we get to the stage where you see the bike fully assembled, I haven't worried about polishing. So what you see there is exactly what I got from the spray can, and like I said, putting it out in the sun and letting the thing dry that way. So you know, I think, you know, at this stage the job looks all right, and there's no hurry for me to come back in and do a, say, a 1500 grade cut and then hand polish, because panels could be a little bit touchy to use a machine on. I don't like using machines anyway, but it wouldn't take that long to hand polish it. But at this stage it looks pretty good at the moment, so you know, there's no need to get in there and say, gee, I've got to make it look more shinier, because it's got a good shine on it as it is. I started off with the handlebar plastics, and here's a shot of the handlebars exposed there where we're working on. So these ones just clipped in, and you just press them together and they sort of snap together after you put one side to the one that's already onto the bike. And apart from that, either end or underneath, there's just one screw each end that you go into, and at the front of the bracket itself there's another hex type bolt there, and you've got 2 push pins there in the centre. So once that's out of the way, you just, you know, put it all together like that. Makes a bit of noise when you're pulling it apart or putting it together, but apart from that, no real drama. And You know, it might scare you at first when you're trying to pull it together, but you know, that's the way it goes. But apart from that, you've got to remove the mirrors naturally, so they were pulled off in the first place, and then they're easy to put back on. After that, I did the bottom panel, a decoration panel just around your switch there, and it's a fairly simple thing to do. You just press fit it straight back in, and once it's in position there, it's got 4 push pins, 2 on each side, and you know, you're ready to go from there, and it's just a pretty simple one to get in place. So after that, I swung to the front mudguard. First I put on the guard itself, and it only had a bolt there in the front support and one at the back near the brake area there where cables come down, and that little bit of a cover it goes over the mudguard either side. It's you know, a bit of a show fork cover sort of thing. Well, that particular one there, it slides in from the top, so when you get those to pull them out, you grab them at the bottom, undo that bolt and then push up and they slide out, and when you put them back in, you slide them down into that slot there, and then just one bolt holds them in position. So once that's out of the way, you're looking at assembling the guts of it, or the centre section, and the first thing, that kick panel area there you see in the photo now, that's the section you work on first, and I think it's something like 3 bolts first hold it in position, and you know, it goes on there quite easy, and there's a couple of press type studs, so when you get there and boulder on, you press it on, and those 2 sort of clip into rubber seals and hold that in position. The 3 bolts hold it in place. Now when you put this base section in place, don't forget to put the Phillips head screw right at the front of the panel there, what I'm showing you there now, because that locks it sort of in position at the front, and you got no worry about movement in that area. So that's really important to make sure that one's in before you start putting the front nose panel on. So when you put the nose panel on, it's a little bit tricky too, so you've got to start in the top, or I started in the top left hand corner and then fitted it right around, brought it back down to the bottom section there, and then slid that overlap of the black foot kick area down into it and started putting it together that way. Now the other thing is, when you push this panel in place, you've got to go to your right hand glove box, and then when you look at the top part of that glove box, there's a pinhole there, and that's where one of your little push pins go into it, the glove box area, which I'll show you now, and that stops it from moving around up the top, so that's an important one to get to. So after that, I went to the rear panel that sits over the back wheel, and it's just got 2 bolts that sort of screw back down into the base there, and really they go down once you slide your grab rails in position there, what I'm showing you there now, and it's got 2 Phillips head screwdrivers apart from that, so virtually 4 of them hold that part together. Then after you finish that side, you come back into the centre, then you put in that glossy black plastic one there, which is attached by 4 hex bolts, so that one there sort of locks everything back in position there after that rear part's done. So I then swung around there to the nose cone, slid in that beak on that one there, and it's just got a couple of screws that bolt up to the top there, and after I did that one, I just press fitted at both sides, put the other panel on there, and got that part under control, and then just attached the 4 bolts to the whole windscreen, and I put my windscreen back up in high position to see how that goes, and then we work over to the left side of the bike, and I went along there and followed the same procedure there, and went in there and press fitted those panels around the gas cap every area. So apart from that, everything went along there all right. It's a little bit fiddly on that section there, and it's a bit of trial and error and a pretty tight fit, but after a little bit of fooling around, you eventually get it. We're on the final stage now, and after that it was just a matter of fit the tub back in place, and there's 5 bolts there to hold that in place, and then bring out my factory seat and attach those 4 bolts under the seat there and pull the seat down, have a look at it, see what I thought of it, which at this stage it looked alright to me sitting there, and more importantly, switched on to see if it was going to start or not, which it did kick over first go without any drama there. And after that I decided I'd go for a run around town up near the local park and it's a nice leafy section up there, so I took just a few of these photos there to show you what it was like. And that was my painting of the 2023 Yamaha Xmax 300, and you know, to me it looks alright. I'm fairly happy with it. Like I said, 6 or 7 out of 10 I'd give it, so that's good enough for the conditions of doing something like this in late autumn and temperatures aren't crash hot. But you know, you might look at it and say it looks rubbish, or you might say it looks alright. Doesn't matter one way or the other. The fact is I'm not selling it. The only thing I'm looking forward to now is clicking 10Ks on that classic 350 reborn, and then I'll swing into a Hunter 350 and just see what it's like. Overall, I've read some pretty good reports on the Hunter, and you know, you often see the bad ones too, but then again, I give bad reports on a lot of stuff, so you know, you can't take too much notice of what people say bad about anything, because you know, the big question is, if they've been on these sort of bikes, and do they know what to expect when you buy a Royal Enfield compared to other bikes and things like that. So you know, there's only one way to find out in my case, and it doesn't worry me going out there and buying a bike if it's no good. You know, there's always somebody that's going to buy a lemon off you if the price is right, regardless. So, you know, the way I look at it, I'll get out there, I'll give this Hunter 350 a bit of a workout. My honest thoughts at this stage is a Hunter definitely, I don't think, looks as good as a classic 350 reborn, but it is supposed to be a little bit more lively to ride, and a great little handler, and sort of nippy, and you know, like, I'm running out of options to buy things at the moment, so I think, you know, the Hunter 350, where if you spoke to me 3 months ago, I probably wouldn't have had much interest in buying it, and I definitely don't like that Media 650, so there's no way I'll buy one of them. So I don't know, I'm just like the singles, and I like the 20 horsepower jobs, and I think I'll get out and give one of those a workout, and if I don't like it, I guess somebody will buy a cheap bike off me. So apart from that, if I do like it, I'll give it a workout. So once again, thanks for tuning in, taking a look, and I'll catch up with you on the next clip.